G'day viewers and welcome to this week's PB's Retro Restorations. This week is my first ever entirely 3D printed build. I was asked by a friend of the channel, Deb, who much prefers Deborah, literally months ago if I could build a replica of her dad's Torana for Father's Day. Son and grandson, same person, two titles. Noah had previously shown me pictures of Graham's Torana, and we're going to stop here for a minute. This photo, he says, "Oh, have a look at this picture of me Pop's Torana." I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool. Oh, did you notice the HQSS in the background as well?" "Oh, yeah. Oh, how cool is that photo?" Anyway, so I knew the car in question, and I've never let my ability get in the way of saying yes to a request, especially from such a good friend as Deb and the family. And as we'd been at the pub for some time, I jumped at the opportunity. I then spent the next 4 months working out how I was going to actually do it. And I couldn't build one for Graham and not also one for Noah. So if the video seems to show two different cars at times, that's why. But at any rate, let's get crack-a-lackin', as they say in Sale, as I'm reliably informed by the locals, and get this show on the road. I amalgamated the rim that came with the Torana file with a Jelly Bean Mag file that I found on Colts 3D. Now I know it's not quite a match for your rims, Graham. Yours has got slightly flatter jelly beans in the rim, but it was the closest I could find. Hope you can forgive me. Ha ha ha. And I printed these out separately, so I had a black tyre, the silver rim, and they pushed together pretty easily. Actually, I was surprised. This was the first success I had with the build, and then from there it was a bit of a roller coaster ride. So here we are after about 15 plus hours of 3D printing. I've given it a wash in the isopropyl, probably for about 15-20 minutes on top of that. And after I pulled it out here, the model that is, I'll put in the UV curer. My biggest problem with 3D printing, viewers, is getting a consistent print. I can print things and have no problem, do exactly the same thing, and the next time it won't come out properly. I had one at the moment, a roll cage I was making for a build, and yeah, it was all over the shop. But anyway, that's a story for another time. This body is one of the bodies I didn't end up using because it's got an A9X scoop on it, and Graham's doesn't, as you can see. And I tried just grinding it off, and it looked terrible. So I reached out to the man who designed the file originally and said, "Mate, could you help me out and do a file without the hood scoop?" And it was like beating my head against a brick wall. So I gave up and redesigned it myself. And it came out pretty good. I was quite pleased with it then. So here I am just breaking off the stems. After I've done this, I'll stick it in the curer for 20 minutes, like I said, and hopefully it'll be a good time. Well, it wasn't a good time because I didn't use this one, but that's okay. We got there in the end. So once I've got a body that I think is usable or can be made usable, I'll just use some of our standard, model kit building techniques, sanding, filling. One of the other big problems I have is getting a wood grain effect in the print, because as it prints each individual layer, it can leave this wood graining effect. And I did my best to sand as much out of it as I could, and I think I did really well. But if you've got any tips for avoiding that, I'm all ears. It would save a lot of work. given it a wet sand as well. Trying to remember if this is one of the bodies that I did end up using all the way through to the end. If ever the rule of test fit, and then test fit it again applies, it applies to these things. Printing, because this file originally comes as a 1/12 scale, which is quite large, and I scaled it down to be, it's about 1/43, it's a bit bigger than that, but I got it down to what would fit on my build plate. So you've also got to reduce all the other parts, and sometimes I would reduce one by a certain percentage and I'd reduce another part, like the interior, and they'd mismatch and they wouldn't fit together. So it was a bit of trial and error, but I got there in the end. I also want to give myself a big shout out, because this body and file were for a L34 race car or an A9X sedan, and it had a race car interior, but yours truly redesigned it to look more like a stock Torana interior. I also designed the twin pipes and tow bar setup for the back. That was 100% scratch designed by myself. It came out really good. Here I am given a test fit of those mag wheels on a body that I didn't end up using because it's got a hood scoop. And here I am gluing some steering wheels on. I made the steering wheels as well. I tried to make it close to a GTS style rim, but it didn't really come out like one. But it looks cool. Absolutely looks cool. Now we've got all that ready, it's copping its first coat of white Tamiya acrylic paint. Standard grey Tamiya primer underneath, and I've got a pretty nice shine on it, although I will clear coat it once I've done all the deckling and everything. Okay, so as you saw in the photos of Graham's Torana, it had the blackouts along the bottom of the doors, it's got the blackouts on the back. You also will have noticed that those photos were taken obviously different stages of the car's life. Some photos there's no spoiler, other ones there are. I went with the time when it did have a spoiler because it already had one on it and it was easier to do it. But here I am masking off all the black areas. The first go I had at this, I tried masking off the stripe down the side, and it was a complete and utter disaster. It looked like trash, and Mrs. PB, who is my greatest supporter and I can always rely on for an honest opinion, agreed with me. And so when Mrs. PB says it's not up to scratch, it really couldn't have been up to scratch. So we scrapped that one and we started again. I also opted to make decals for the stripes, which was a master stroke on behalf of my brain. It looked so much neater. It came out so much better. if you're wondering why I'm spray painting the bumper bars black as well, that was in an anticipation of laying Molotow chrome over the top to make the bumpers chrome, obviously. I had to leave that to the very last stage because you can't clear coat Molotow. It does not like it and would have completely ruined the effect. So Graham, if I haven't bored you to sleep yet, I did the interior of the car like tan. It's called Flat Earth. I had to rely on Lenny and everyone else. No one could remember, but so they had a guess that it was probably tan. So I know you will remember, but I couldn't ask you. So I'm sorry if it wasn't tan. Maybe next time I'll paint it the proper colour. You just let me know.
I'm PB and I'm the best. Rapping with my...
Wow, what a gift, truly the voice of a generation. Anyway, another obstacle I had to overcome being new to this medium was windows. You know, I don't have the ability to vacuum form windows, and even if I did, I didn't have a mould to go off. So once again, Mrs. PB gave me some sheets of plastic that came from, I think it was a new set of knives she bought, and that plastic outer thing was just the right consistency and thickness to recycle. See, I'm an eco-warrior now. Recycle into windows for the Torana. So it was a case of trial and error. Cut them, see if they'd fit. Cut them a bit, see if they'd fit. Cut them a bit more and find I'd done them too small and start again. But you know, as I like to say, I got there in the end. Just used canopy glue to hold them in, and that did the trick. So here I'm masking off for the bumpers. The trick here is not to rip all the other paint and decals and everything off in the process, which I managed to do, which was good. As I mentioned before, I had to leave this till the very last step so that the chrome would look like chrome, because if I clear coated the Molotow, I can never pronounce it properly, it would go all dull. I found that with the HQ Kingswood build when I did the door handles. I thought I'll just try and dull it down a touch with some dull coat, and it ruined it. Had to do them again. So that's why I didn't do this stage earlier. Graham's car had spotties on it as well in a couple of the photos, although it looked like you might have changed them at one stage. I think there were two different types, or maybe they just had covers on. They looked different, Graham, I'm not sure. But I designed these in Tinkercad, printed them out and stuck them on there. I've also should mention now that I did decals for the headlights, the Torana badges on the bonnet and the 4.2 litre badges on the guards, and I've somehow lost the footage of me applying them. But you'll see them at the end, and I designed those myself as well. Ooh, just like I bought one. Wacky doodle. So thanks for several rounds of test fitting before I painted everything. This should all go fairly straightforward, shouldn't it, viewers? And normally that's a carrot dangle for something going horribly wrong, but it didn't, and it went together pretty easy. Where I did have a problem was modifying the base so I could put on a little plinth for display, but we'll get to that. Here we go. Wait for it. I replay this. I can hear it starting to go before it does, but anyway, strap yourself in. This wasn't the worst disaster that befell the project. I put the body in my pocket and went to go out to the shed, and then I forgot it was in my pocket, and then when I hopped in the car and put my seatbelt on, I completely smashed the body. So Noah got his car on his 18th, and fortunately I was able to pull it all back together and get another body out before Father's Day. So anyway, alright, so lining the wheels up once the base and everything is already on it was a little bit of a challenge, because you have to glue it together with the bolt through it first and then put the wheels on it. So propped it up on this little sanding stick, got the wheels on, took a bit of finoodling, a couple of times I wasn't happy with it and took the wheels back off and glued them again. But they're all straight, they're all where they should be, underneath the car. When I did Noah's, you might notice in the shots at the end, the front wheels were a bit narrow, so I spaced the ones on yours out, Graham, so that they look a bit more normal. Sorry, Noah, you got the first build, and some of the things I learnt from yours I applied to Graham's. No refunds. With the wheels sorted out, it's time for a few little touch-ups underneath to where I'd made some sanding modifications, and of course the super glue can affect the paint a little bit too, so I just wanted to neaten that up so it all looked tickety-boo. The nature of this build meant I had to hand draw the tail lights on it, so I started with 1mm Molotow chrome, and then I went over the top with a really fine red and orange pen. Noah, again, I thought my expert brain knew how Torana tail lights went when I did yours, and then when I thought, I'll just double check because I'll just make sure I did them the right way, and discovered that I hadn't done them the right way. So Graham, yours is right. Noah's probably has a little bit of inaccuracy in it, but it still looks cool, and that's, let's face it, that's what we want. Also made I say custom, I made a replica set of Victorian license plates based on the photos. Stuck one on the front, obviously, one on the back. The one on the back I applied far too much glue, but I managed to get most of it off and everything's okay. What I did on Noah's car was make the top bar red and the bottom bar orange, when it's actually just the inside part that's red, and then the parts that go around the corner obviously are orange. So if you don't look too close, Noah, it'll be fine. If I don't mention it, no one will notice, probably.
So Noah gave me these photos, well, shared some photos he took of your Torana strop, which is pretty cool. But you know, it's really cool. You'll have a little piece of me on your shelf with a particular plant there in the background, Lenny. I bet you recognise it. I won't mention it online in case you get arrested. I've got these really neat 1/43 specific cases online, and they fit the Torana perfectly. Almost forgot the Torana for the top of the windscreen. What a dope I am. And with the application of that, is just like that, as if by magic, with no grief whatsoever, we are done. So here we are back at the start with our 3D printed shell of a Torana, converted from a race type to try to make it as stock as I could, Graham. The wheel arches, I know they're flared too much and they're not real stock, but I hope you can overlook that. Anyway, this is what we started with, and this is what we're left with now. Ta-da! The end result. I'm really stoked with myself and how well this came out, viewers. I've still got a little bit to learn about, 3D printing and resin modelling, but I am really pleased with it. Graham and Noah, I hope you're pleased with it. I hope I captured most of the details, Graham. I've got the tow bar and the twin exhaust and the spotlights and the Torana sticker across the top of the windscreen. I know I didn't get the mud flaps. I'm sorry. I kept meaning to do them and I didn't. But overall, I'll slap myself on the back if no one else will. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the end results when you got it. And, as you'll see at the end, we broke a few eggs to make the omelette. But I couldn't think of friends that I would be more happy to do it for. Thanks very much. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come watch another one of my videos, viewers. I know I've been bombarding you with them lately, but I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your support. Graham, I hope you had a really good Father's Day. I hope the car was a nice surprise for you. Now, don't forget, viewers, next Friday is my entry in the DMC's Paint It Blue for Alzheimer's Awareness charity build. As with last year, I'll be auctioning the car off, and you'll be able to bid to win it and have a little slice of PB in your own home, much like Graham and Noah have now. Every cent from that build will go to charity. I'll cover the fees and all that stuff. If it goes for $10, it goes for $100. That's what will be donated. I'll give you more details about that through the week, if not on the day of the video. And I really appreciate you checking it out. It's a subject close to my heart. Thanks very much for watching. I'll stop the waffle now and let you all go and do all the more important things you should be doing with your weekend or Friday night. All right, I'll see you next Friday. Bye.